Hello and welcome to episode 37. Yeah, alright, I gotta check. Of the Cellarcast. This is our first episode of the month? No, it's not. What am I talking about? No, wait, it is. Yeah, last Monday was, the last day of February. Wow. I am patiently awaiting, Persona 4 Arena to come out on Steam. I'm actually quite interested because what makes it interesting even for people who played the game before is that not only, well, first of all, it's exciting to them because it's going to be accessible again. The game hasn't been like purchasable for forever, and not only that, but it's also going to have rollback, which means you can actually play it. It's a new version of the game. So apparently Persona 4 Arena had a ton of different versions between the arcade and the console, and then the console and arcade. And supposedly the most recent version, like 2.5 or something of the game, something like that, was only ever released in arcades, never on console. And because I think most tournaments were run on console, so a lot of people ended up playing it there. Honestly, the 2.5 version or whatever, the most recent one, might not have even come out like outside of Japan. That's like a possibility. So it's going to be like a new version that most people have actually not played or even like tried out or really know anything about. So that's cool. I know that there's definitely top tiers and bottom tiers in P4U, so hopefully it kind of balances that out. Always like you don't want to go for like a everyone being in the middle ground. I think like the best final versions have usually been like versions that took the top tiers down a little bit and boosted the low tiers up a little bit so that everyone's at least playable and no one is obscenely strong. So hopefully that's what it is. I'm actually quite interested in it. I've been watching some more content about the game recently and it looks kind of dope. I want to try out Akihiko. Anyways, let's jump into the comment review real quick. Review, not reveal. So this is a follow-up from our previous episode where Lozy says, remember that I don't... So if you recall, Lozy asked a question about higher refresh rate monitors, and I was a little confused on one of the sentences he wrote, which is like the last... There were two questions, so I was a little confused on the last one. He says, remember that I don't speak English, so sometimes it's difficult for me to express myself well. My question was still answered. I meant if when you quote, level up on monitors that you feel the need to revisit old games. And I was wondering if those changes happen when you go to, in your case, 240 Hertz in a future type of screen. Well, I have a 144, not 240. But, it's... at a certain point, it's like diminishing returns, probably. I don't know. Well, first of all, this is always so funny when people say that like they like sorry for my poor English, and like almost like 90% of their writing is better than like people who speak English natively. It's like absurd. I read a comment from this guy the other day just on another video, just in some comment section, and he just asked like he just said something completely intelligible. I never would have guessed that English was not his first language or something, and they always tag it with sorry for my bad English or sorry for my English. It's like, what? So saying you don't speak English is a bit of a I don't think that's too accurate. Do I feel a need to revisit old games? No, not really. I haven't, it wasn't so big of a jump. I don't know, it wasn't that big of a deal for me. I also tend to, like, kind of go back and check out stuff somewhat often. I mean, like, how different is Mega Man 6 gonna be on a 60 hertz monitor compared to like a 144 hertz monitor? Not too much. And it did make, I guess it made like some fighting games a little easier to, or not easier, but it helped the experience a little bit. Just like a, I don't know, I can't even tell you if there was like a performance in, like if I'm better with a higher refresh rate. But a lot of the games that I play, I don't tend to play, I feel like higher refresh rates, pardon me, would probably work better on either faster paced games, which I do play, or like, I don't know what I'm talking about with graphics, so maybe I should. I was going to say maybe games with like higher fidelity graphic. I guess more like photorealistic graphics. I have no clue. For me, it was pretty much just a quality of life improvement of like, oh, it's so smooth. It's so smooth to the point where like when I look at other monitors, it's so choppy looking that I'm like, or, you know, older, or not older, but you know, stuff that I used to run stuff on, like 60 hertz, and I was like, ooh, this is weird. Dude, you know what I was looking at today? So there's an interesting, fun thread on Reddit. It was basically asking like parents, what shows do you hate your kids watching? Like, what's your least favorite like kids shows? And it was funny because like I want to say a good 60 to 70% of like the big comments, like with a lot of replies underneath them, were kids content on YouTube. Some stuff on like streaming, but for the most part it was like, I think like the top 3 were all like Ryan's Toy World or Ryan's Toy Review. I don't actually remember. Yeah, which I feel like everyone can kind of agree that that whole thing is weird. But there was also a lot of comments about Coco Melon. I was outside of some Hololive memes. I didn't know what Coco Melon really was, because I don't have a child, nor do we have a child in the house. Coco Melon is, I don't know where they're from. I want to say they feel like European for some reason, like an Eastern European or something. I don't know that. Some of like the phrasing on stuff, like it's in English. It's essentially like CG animated shorts, little songs that are like shorts for children. And maybe I could just Coco. If I just, oh, I tapped the wrong thing. It's like, what just happened? Coco Melon. Where are they from? Is it an American? Really? Streaming media show acquired by British company Moonbug Entertainment. It's American. It doesn't feel like it. From like just watch like some of their things and you're like, some of their videos and just like some of the language, and you're just like, this is just phrased weirdly. I don't know how to describe it. It feels like someone, you know, on the topic of people who's like, you know, English isn't their first language. It feels a little odd. Just like, it's kind of like, I think it might just be the fact that like they have to churn out so much content, because all their videos are like 70 minutes long and they have like 100 different shorts in them. So maybe they just like don't have time, because like the lyrics, they never fit in like the meter. They're always like speeding up words or like dragging things out, and it always just, it's so weird. They're like they're not good songs. So they might just be like that. But so this thing that these parents were pointing out was that was interesting, was like when their kids, when Coco Melon comes on, their kids just like stop. They call it the zombie effect, where they just like when you fucking weirdos see the tall vampire lady in Resident Evil, you know? But it's like children. It's kind of weird when it's children, right? They're just like, oh. And they just watch this stuff that's like, why are they so into it? And one parent was talking about like they said something called the frame change. I don't know what that means. I was like, oh, is it the frame rate? Or they were talking about like the speed of the animation. And I was like, huh, because I never really watched any of these. So I go and look them up, and it's weird. It's weird. Like, if it's hard to describe, but you watch like their animations, and it feels like they're animating on like a reduced frame rate. And I'm watching it in like 1080p 60 FPS, so it should be relatively smooth, but it looks like it's in it's weirdly choppy. Like, almost like there's screen tearing at some points. It's really weird, and it's not consistent either. Just sometimes certain movements will just be like, it'll just feel like there's some frames cut out. Like, not a ton to be like super, not a ton to be looking like it's a slideshow, but like just enough to kind of throw you off, like almost disorienting. Like it's a little too fast, but it's a little too slow. It's so weird. And it's almost like I just look at it, I'm like, it does have a weird visual effect. It does have a strange kind of draw to it, because it's almost uncanny, but not in like a like a regular uncanny valley type way. But sort not in a regular way where it comes off as like creepy. It's just like your brain's trying to figure it out, and it can't really, like, it's almost running at like a regular frame rate, but it's, I guess, like the uncanny frame rate valley or something. Like, when you see something in like a smooth 60 FPS, you're like, okay. And then when you see something like a 30 FPS, you're like, okay, because it's just enough. It's in that middle ground where it's like it's how do I describe it's like just, it's enough that it doesn't feel weird and choppy and slow, and it also doesn't feel really I don't know, real. There's a notable difference. Like, remember when The Hobbit came out, I think, and it was in like ultra fast frame rate. It was in like 120 frames per second or something like that they shot it in, and it's like, it just looks a little weird. And not like, if they played a game like that, it would probably be fine, but you're just not used to seeing like movies like that. So what I'm trying to say is that like there's a middle ground where, like, I mean, it's the way that the Uncanny Valley works, is like you get to a certain point, like on the higher end of things, where your brain, like, there's a threshold, and anything above that, your brain is like, okay, this is like realistic kind of motion, or a realistic thing. And then there's like a lower point where your brain is like, okay, this is not realistic, but you can you can understand that it's not realistic. And then there's certain there's like real, like, something's animating at like 10 frames, it can be almost like nauseating, right? It can almost be like, ugh, because it's just your brain's trying to, it's so unnatural. But there's also, I think, like a middle ground between that 30 and 60, somewhere there, where it's like, it's not enough, like, it's not like a high enough frame rate that your brain can like look at it as like a realistic motion and, you know, calm down, and it's not slow enough, or it's not a low enough frame rate that your brain can see that it's like not that. It's just in the middle, and you can't really figure it out. And I wonder if kids' brains have this kind of like, because it was like something that, like, I have a fully developed brain, pretty much. Doesn't your brain fully develop like at 21 or something like that? So I got a year left, but I have a mostly developed brain. Hey, maybe when I hit 21, I won't be so entranced by this Cocoa Melon frame rate. But I wonder if that's like even more so for kids. Apparently kids have like, there's like a notable effect. There's like some study where, like, if kids like under 4 and under watch like really fast paced content, it like has like an actual like effect on their mood. Like, they actually get really hyperactive. So yeah, I find that so interesting because like I grew up on YouTube, right? And I turned out okay. Um, what messed me up wasn't it wasn't YouTube. Let's just say that. Um, but like the YouTube that I grew up on was so different. Like that 2000s, late 2000s. I want to say like my growing up period, because you know like I I wouldn't consider myself much of like a 2000s kid, like sort of, but there's a lot of stuff when you talk to someone who's that's like it's like because I just wasn't really aware of what was going on around me for a lot of that. Really, I was more of like a late 2000s, early 2010s kid. And at that time, YouTube was much more of like a teenager-ish thing. It's much more of like a teenager, college student, maybe like some young adults or adults who, you know, want to put their little film projects up. It was very different. And then, of course, like little kids just throwing up, you know, videos of them just doing whatever on a webcam. Because, well, the internet, you know. It was very different, and like the landscape of content was different. It was you never really heard of someone making a living off of YouTube around that time. You started to, but it was very new, and even though a lot of the content that I watched was very like crass and like adult, it was made for adults, right? Stuff like, you know, the Angry Video Game Nerd, or like, I don't know, JonTron or stuff like that. It was made for like, I don't know, a more mature crowd. And there, it would also help that there was like actual skill behind it, right? Like, you go back, you watch AVGN videos, and you're like, man, it's no wonder that this stuff took off. Like, his level of just filmmaking is, it's subtle, but it's like, he just shoots things in an interesting way that's not just like him in front of a wall. He, like, the amount of different camera angles and like way that he chooses to present stuff is so much more like visually interesting than anything else that was happening on the internet at that time. And I think like as a kid, consuming stuff that like respected, like was maybe like I think I was like kind of, people always told me I was mature for my age. And like I think like watching stuff like that was like for a more mature audience was like a speed that I could like get with. And so I think it actually kind of like helped me in the long run. I think it like was constructive to my development, especially creatively. I was really inspired creatively by those guys, just to like be a creative, you know. So like I think about it, I'm like, well, I grew up on YouTube and the internet, and I was fine. But it was so different back then. And now you have like this whole, the landscape has changed so much. It's become extremely commercialized, very corporatized. And there's like ways to like exploit, it's so much more like exploitable of a platform than it was back then. It's like, what was the most, pardon me, what was the most exploitation you saw back then? It was like reply girls or something. Like, who cares? If you know what reply girls were, then you get your YouTube veterans discount. Like, who cares about that stuff? Now it's like, oh, J Station makes videos for children where he's like doing satanic rituals and like being like a horrible fucking human being, and kids love him. And it's like, that's kind of concerning that he just has so much influence on these kids. And then like, you know, there's obviously people doing like, oh, someone's going to the bathroom. There's people doing these crypto scams, people doing scams in general, tons of just weird shady stuff, you know. It's such a like more exploitable platform than it was in the first place. And of course, when anything starts to become exploitable, you look for exploitable groups, which is like, well, dumb people, people who are in like vulnerable situations, right? Like maybe people who are poor and desperate or emotionally vulnerable. That's how a lot of cults get people, is they provide you comfort and stuff like that. And then one of the biggest markets, especially for online content, is children, because children just they don't have very good BS detectors, and it's like a perfect storm, right? Everything except for money, because kids have a lot of time. They're very impressionable. They usually still believe in authority figures. They don't have BS detectors to know when they're being lied to, or even get the suspicion that they're being lied to, or when they're being marketed to. They don't know when they're being. Just being marketed to is such a thing. Like, you don't even. As a kid, you know that, like, well, the commercials are different from, like, the TV shows I watch, but you don't really, like, understand advertising or marketing. There's so much that you just don't know from, like, a knowledge perspective, from an experience perspective, from a wisdom point of view, right? And so they're so easy, especially when you get these, like, people who are able to, like, you know what, it's really interesting when you look at these, like, kids content creators, and they all have this really odd way of speaking, and it's different from, like, a regular children's presenter. Like, when you look at, like, regular, like, obviously, like, a classic example would be, like, Mr. Roger, but, you know, some other, even, like, other good kids presenters, they have, like, they kind of, like, up their voice, they're a little more exaggerated, not coming off as, like, childish, but just, like, fun and like a little, like, you need a little more to grab a kid's attention. And when you look at people who are really good at it, they have, like, they tend to have a kind of draw to them that, like, will make kids interested in what they're saying. Bill Nye's another good one. The way that you enunciate and you speak clearly and stuff like that. I remember when my mom used to work in, like, childcare for a really long time. She said that whenever she wanted the kids to listen to something, she talked really quietly, because she worked with, like, really, usually pretty young kids, like 4 and under, 3 and under, stuff like that. And they would, whenever you talked really quietly, they would get quiet because they wanted to hear what you were saying. They were curious. They were like, what is she saying? What? Oh, what? They listen up. It was really funny. But you listen to these, like, kids creators, right? And they have this way of speaking that's really, it's off. It's just a little off. And I was thinking about it, and I figured it out. It's this kind of, like, cut. It's like this really interesting kind of, like, rise and fall in their tone, and I think it's, like, specifically designed to hit you with, like, a burst of energy at the start of a phrase, or every so often, like every so many beats, and then kind of taper off, and then hit you with another one, and then taper off, and then hit you with another one, and then bop bop bop, cut. Repeat the cycle. I think it's, like, specifically designed to be, like, just stimulating enough that it's always grabbing your attention, but it's also not exhausting you entirely, if that makes sense. So it can sustain you through, like, a 10-20 minute video. And it's weirdly manipulative. It's very strange. Makes me uncomfortable. And, like, it works for kids because kids need that, like, kids are really, like, their attention is grabbed by that kind of, like, just kind of substanceless stimulation of just colors, sounds, energy, intensity. And usually you need some of that, or a lot of, even good children's entertainers work in some of that, but these guys are, like, really clearly structuring the way that they speak and edit to basically just keep, it's almost like an addictive quality, specifically for children, because like if you're even like a preteen, I feel like you will just get exhausted. I watched, like, there's this guy, like, his name was like Collins Key. I saw a video about him. Holy fuck, dude, this guy is just, oh my god, like my head hurts. I feel like I just want to go and like meditate after watching 5 minutes of this guy. He's just way too much. But kids love it. They love it. So it's like, if I have a kid, I might actually, like, which would not be for, like, what, fucking, like, 10 years? Hey, if we're lucky. I don't know if, like, if I was raising a kid right now, knowing what I know about, you know, YouTube, I don't know if I would let them watch YouTube. Even YouTube Kids, because YouTube Kids just filters out basically just stuff. Honestly, YouTube Kids at this point just filters out intellectual content. Or more like intellectual content. Basically. I'm like, I was thinking about this, because I watched, obviously, I was thinking about this because there was a Nerd City did that, he did this, and Colossal's Crazy did this huge video on J Station, which was like just a part 1. I'm very excited for the next parts. And I was watching J Station, like, what just a piece of shit this guy is. He's a literal devil worshipper. Did you know that? He literally worships the devil. And I was like, I feel like kids watching this is more harmful than if they watched, like, my video about DOS porn. like literally my video about pornography. I feel like my video is less harmful and more constructive. I guess I make my videos for smart kids. I don't know. I guess the 18 to 24 demographic, but that also includes smart kids, I guess. You know, I remember being like 8 or something watching Sequelitis, and I always found it really interesting, like that part at the very start of the Mega Man one where he goes, "Hey, I know you're a smart kid because I say fuck a lot and you're okay with that." And I felt called out. I felt like personally like spoken to. It's like an 8-year-old watching that, or a 9-year-old, or wait, that came out in 2011, so I was 9. Yeah, I was 9 when that came out. So I probably watched around that time. Oh, what a life-changing video. Anyway, I guess, is that it for the comment review? I might make that its own section on the timestamp, because I feel like I talked about that for a while. We're almost up to 30 minutes. I've just been talking about that stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I would probably just let that, probably just let my kid, I don't know, find something on streaming that I was okay with. I have no clue, but YouTube, I don't know. I would curate. I would go so far as to make playlists for my kid. You don't go off the playlist. So, this was something I was going to talk about, and it was going to be kind of like a bigger thing, and then it was, well, okay, so this post appeared on r/games. It was about the GMG Union. So the GMG Union is a union that represents journalists, writers from a bunch of different a bunch of different companies, journalists. So some of those include some notable gaming ones: Gizmodo, Kotaku, Lifehacker. I don't know what the life. I don't know. Has anyone thought about a Lifehacker in a minute? Does the Root do stuff? There's also like Jezebel. What the fuck is Jalopnik? You know, these old Jalopniks are built Ford tough. Jalopnik. Oh, it's a motorcycle? Okay, motorcycle. Oh, it's like Gawker. All the old Gawker guys. So basically they were organizing for a union because they were, their main contention was just being fucked around with on their contracts, not being given health care, stuff like that, not being paid well, Yeah, so just basic Union stuff, but it was like, oh, you know, they were saying one of the things was do not even click on anything from those sites. I was like, that's fine. But it did put me in a bit of a weird position because I do read a lot from, like, Kotaku. I don't browse Kotaku, but if a story from Kotaku comes up, then I'm inclined and I'm interested in it, then I will, you know, I'll read from the original website. I do use AdBlock on their site, but, you know, page views, I don't know, might contribute to their profits or whatever. So I was getting this whole thing ready to talk about it. And then I go to the thing, like I pull up the link again on I have a separate window where I keep all of my topics for the podcast that I build up over the week. And they won. The website got updated. They got what they demanded. So that's cool. Namely, higher salary minimums for all positions, guaranteed 3% annual raises for all unit members, 15 weeks parental leave, 12 weeks minimum severance, maintained our current cost-sharing cap for healthcare, WPATH compliant trans-inclusive healthcare, defeated management's proposal to give up bargaining rights over changes to healthcare mid-contract. What a scumbag move. Oh my god, how can you do that with a clean conscience? Give up bargaining rights? Jesus Christ. 45K diversity effort budget with audit and transparency. Goal of 40% of candidates at the hiring manager interview stages from underrepresented backgrounds. Retained right to publicly speak about working conditions. That's important. Strengthened editorial independence language. Management was now, okay, basically blah, blah, blah. They got to adhere with some stuff. Will they? I don't know, but now they have to by contract. Obtained guarantees against forced relocation for current remote staff. So just stop fucking around with us was basically it. Stop fucking around with us and treat your writers better. So I guess they got it. So now you can browse Kotaku in good conscience. If you were browsing Kotaku at all. It's interesting. We're gonna kind of touch on that in the upcoming video. Anyways, yeah, so that got done. Next thing I want to talk about... Oh, wait, hang on, real quick. So John Romero made a brand new... He made an original level for Doom. A Doom 2 level, pardon. A Doom 2 level, and you can buy it for €5. And 100% of the proceeds go towards... Red Cross and the UN Central Emergency Response Fund. So if you want something more constructive, if you don't like war and you want something more constructive than hurting the common people of a country with sanctions, then you can go buy a Romero made Doom 2 level. Cool. Hey, look, all I'm saying, Romero does not miss with his levels. He's a great level designer. I think he's only gotten better. So yeah, hope everything works out. I don't like war. You know what? I was planning on... I saw it just... when was this? This was a few days ago, and then I kind of filed it away. I'm gonna buy it right now, on video. And then after that, fucking PayPal. And then after that, we're gonna talk a little bit about some brand new, very sad news that came up. Is that my credit card? Yeah. I don't have it. Yeah. I'm always like, is that the numbers that my card ends in? Epic. Cool. Alright, cool. Anyway, well, you know, it's funny because play the music. Yeah. It's about that time, guys. I wish it wasn't, but it's about that time. You know, it's funny because I reached out to Ghost Jack and I was like, hey, you know, I feel like the Blizzard news, it's gonna be slowing down right now. Looks like the lawsuits are slowing down, and it's gonna, you know, take some time for stuff to get. Maybe we'll see some stuff in a few months, but it's not gonna be that same rate that it was going on before, where it was just felt like every day, so much awful news. And then, hey, what do I see today? A wrongful death lawsuit has been filed against Activision Blizzard by, I believe, the family. Let me check just to make sure. Yeah, the parents of the woman who committed suicide. This is the lady who committed suicide after her her nudes and pictures of her genitals were shared at a company party. Yeah, it's that one. So to get you guys up to speed, there was a woman who worked at Activision, not Blizzard, but Activision, who, I don't remember what like department she was in, but basically she was being kind of messed with by a supervisor. They had some kind of a sexual relationship. Don't know like all the details, how much of it was her feeling pressured or anything, but he took pictures of her genitals, shared it around at a company holiday party. And then while they were on a work trip in Europe, actually, I think to visit like some Activision office in the UK or something. While staying at a hotel, she took her own life. I forget exactly how she did, and I don't know if that was ever made public, which is, you know, totally fine. But she took her own life, and the supervisor who it was known, you know, she had this relationship with, obviously, as soon as that happened, the police got involved, the hotel got involved, the police got involved. I just smacked the fuck out of my sorry, I smacked the fuck out of my pop filter. And they did a search, and they found of her supervisor, they found that he'd brought butt plugs and lube on the trip. And it was like, it's kind of the smoking gun. It's, maybe we can now start calling, instead of the smoking gun, we can start saying the lubed up plug. God damn it. God damn it. I'm so fucking dumb. It was the lubed plug, you know? That was like, hey, did something happen here, guys? And this was actually the case. This was the incident that broke open the entire investigation into Activision's culture, because it was like, holy shit, what was going on here? And then they just started looking, and just more started coming out, and it was like, holy fuck, this entire company must be purged. So the original article comes from the Daily Beast. I found this reposted on Reddit. I don't know if there was another one. I will read from the post. This is on the Asmongold subreddit by Daniel Moore, 0515 compiled this. Here are some highlights. So her supervisor texted her the day it happened saying, quote, "Don't do this. Not tonight. Clear your mind first before making a decision." Okay. Her supervisor brought sex toys and lubricant on the company trip, intending to sleep with her by any means necessary. And this was a breaking point for her. Her nudes had been passed around at a company party a few weeks before the trips. The nudes were passed around by her supervisor. During the post-suicide investigation, her company electronics, including a phone and a laptop, were wiped completely clean and no records were kept. Activision also did not participate or cooperate with the investigation, parentheses, according to the filing. Perhaps the most crucial point of the case is that she filed multiple HR reports and complaints against him and others, meaning the company was fully aware of what was happening. A very critical point in proving liability and culpability, because it means the company refused to intervene to protect their employee from abuse and harassment by another. As the final point, her supervisor also lied multiple times to investigators about the events leading up to and after her death, as well as tampering with evidence in her hotel room, leading to a specific quote from the lawsuit. Quote, Carrie's suicide, if that was the product of an uncontrollable impulse. I'm not sure, that's a little weird quote. Carrie's suicide, if Carrie's suicide was the product of an uncontrollable impulse. Huh. Listing, so if that is in parentheses, that's what's throwing me off. Carrie's suicide, if that, should be in commas. It's a little less confusing, but okay. Was the product of an uncontrollable impulse. So if that is, that's saying if it even was a suicide. We're not going to go quite that deep. Listing several reasons, including the fact that she did not leave behind a suicide note. There is no proof of any pre-planning. She never intimated to anyone that she was considering suicide. She had plans to attend a country music festival a few days later. She was soon going to serve as the maid of honor at a friend's wedding for which she had already bought plane tickets, and that she would never have left her beloved cat, Mr. Leo, alone without making advance plans for him to be cared for. This is getting pretty dark, guys. This is getting pretty down in the deep. If you know what I'm talking about. Let me go back to this. So yeah, a lot of this is a recap of the events. Let's see. Man, this is On April 27th, 2017, a security guard at Disney's Grand California Hotel and Spa, where Activision's global sales and finance team were meeting. I thought this was on a company trip. It was a company trip to... It wasn't in Europe. Okay. Was I wrong about that? It was a company trip to Disney's Grand California Hotel and Spa. So it was a company trip, but it looks like it was in-state. Found Carrie Moynihan, a CPA and finance manager at Activision's Santa Monica headquarters, dead in her room, her parents' lawsuit explains. Carrie at the time was romantically involved with her supervisor, a married man with a newborn son, identified in the filing as Greg Restituito? Having a sexual relationship with a subordinate is, quote, contrary to Activision policy, the Moynihan suit points out. On the evening of April 26th, so the evening before, Carrie joined a group of coworkers for dinner, explains the lawsuit. She was scheduled to give a presentation to her colleagues the next day, it says. At around 11 p.m., Carrie and some work friends headed to the Grand Californian's bar for drinks. About 90 minutes later, Carrie, quote, spoke with Restituito in the hotel's lobby. Restituito, how do you fucking say that name? Then returned to the bar, the filing continues. A few minutes after that, Restituito sent Carrie a text message reading, "Please don't do that. Not tonight. Think about it and make your decision when your mind is clear." Shortly before 2 a.m., Carrie left the bar and returned to her room. Restituito was staying directly across the hall. Dude. States the lawsuit, which is, okay. According to data from Restituito's room keycard, beginning at approximately 2:15 a.m., Restituito repeatedly left his room for short intervals. The next morning, beginning at approximately 8:30 a.m., this is all quoting from the statement, from the filing, Restituto tried contacting Carrie. At approximately 9 a.m., Restituto contacted hotel security. Carrie's body was discovered just before 9:30. One of Restituto's room keys was found in Carrie's hotel room. Dude. Restituto told detectives, but the Restituto and Activision Blizzard stonewalled investigators and attempted to cover up what had happened, the Moynahans allege. Restituto told detectives that he had been in Carrie's room to prepare for a presentation at the conference, the suit explains. According to a police report cited in the filing, Restituto, quote, made, quote, seemingly unusual inquiries with other employees who were present with Carrie the night preceding her death. The lawsuit also contends that Restituto later went to Carrie's apartment, and this is, quote, and cleaned it and removed items from it. Restituto denied having a sexual relationship with Carrie and, quote, lied to the police about his reason for having a key to Carrie's apartment. Restituto finally came clean about the affair under a second round of questioning by detectives. According to the Moynahans, Activision Blizzard refused to turn over Carrie's work-issued laptop to police and told investigators that her work-issued cell phone had been wiped. Wow. Bro. This is... So I saw the basic details, and I obviously read that rundown. I did not read all those quotes. Whoa. Now, obviously, because I'm in technically a public setting, a public forum, I can't say exactly what I'm thinking, but I think you know what I'm thinking right now. Ooh. Oh my god. Ooh. Ooh. Let's see. What can I say about this that will not get me a potential slander case? With assuming that this was a suicide, Restituto, this fella, might even be I feel like he's at least liable for manslaughter. So in the U.S., if I could, let me pull up the exact definition, because I'm generally familiar, but let me pull up the exact, hang on, manslaughter definition. The crime of killing a human being without malicious aforethought, so basically without planning or otherwise in circumstances not excuse me, not amounting to murder. So basically in the US we have first degree murder, which is in a simple sense pre-planned. You planned to kill someone and then you went and did it. We have second degree, which is you didn't plan to kill someone but you killed someone directly. This is stuff like you get into an argument with somebody and you didn't go there to kill them or something, but you go there, you get into an argument, it escalates, and then you kill them, right? That would be second degree. It wasn't premeditated, it kind of happened in the moment. But you still had murder. You had murder, blood on your hands. Manslaughter is a slightly like you were the cause of someone's death, but it was not direct. Like you didn't shoot someone, you didn't hurt someone to physically, at least, into doing something, or physically to the point where they died, or neglected them. That's another. I don't know what neglect falls under. Like if you if you just don't feed your kid or something like that and they starve. Vehicular manslaughter is a common one. Like you just fuck up, you get into an accident and you accidentally hit someone and kill them, or you kill someone in their car. That's a one that people are more commonly familiar with. Like, you didn't plan to get into a car accident, You were just stupid, and or sometimes it's just circumstance. Something happened, and you accidentally kill someone. So like you still have to, pay a consequence for killing someone, but it wasn't the kind of, we don't see it with as much. It's not as severe as like planning to kill somebody, right? Or even not being able to control your impulses enough to not kill someone. If that makes sense. That's at least how it works in the US. So in this case, abusing someone to the point that they kill themselves, I think you could make grounds for the fact that he is, and honestly, there's a very strong argument that he is responsible for her suicide, especially given the evidence that, in any other aspect, like if it was going to be anything, it was going to be him and what he was doing to her. Obviously, there's a lot here that we don't know what was going on. I mean, this guy was married, he had a newborn, she was, someone in a lower position than him. Who knows the full extent of what was going on? And obviously, like, he wanted to have sex with her by any means necessary, right? If that was really his intent. And obviously, bringing the butt plug, I don't know if she was into that, but I can imagine if you weren't, and someone's saying, I'm gonna have sex with you no matter what, and you do what she did, it's a terrifying situation. It's a really scary situation. There's a lot that we don't know here. But there is enough to say that with the basic facts of what's publicly known, you could make a strong argument for manslaughter. That he didn't, obviously, well, okay. The fact that I feel like it's okay to say this because they did write the words, if that, saying if it even was a suicide. So this is what's implied by the filing. What they're implying is this was a murder. This was foul play. There was intent. And, obviously there's a bunch of conspiracy theories that you could go off of here. Did she, when they say that, are they implying that maybe she was like pushing back against him? Because it sounds like she had a lot to live for and was not in a suicidal kind of state of mind. She had plans for stuff that she was going to go to. Obviously, in the heat of the moment, maybe she could have made a decision. If it was just so intense, oftentimes suicide is not an incredibly, it's not not a rational thing, or you don't make it with a clear head. But also, let's say that it wasn't a suicide, which is what is implied by the case, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything. But, like, did she push back against him, and then maybe she was going to take stuff public, maybe she was at her limit, and she was going to tell his wife, And I mean, he's got a newborn, he's got this cushy position, and if it goes public, maybe if it's against company policy, and obviously it was being tolerated by the company, but it's being covered up. If she goes public with it, it's really hard for Activision to keep covering it up if she starts making a big shit show about it. Maybe it was the implication, the conspiracy is that it was some kind of foul play on his part, that was an act of desperation, and that maybe you could paint it as a suicide. Because those texts, if you're kind of a crafty little fella and you wanted to cover something up as a suicide, but it's a premeditated murder, saying, The times are very interesting, saying don't do this tonight, not tonight. Let me find the so about 90, so the timing is very, I don't know, it's interesting. So they have this, so they're at the bar, they leave, and they have this conversation about an hour and a half later in the lobby. What happened in that lobby? Or, you know, what conversation did they have? We don't know. And then after that, he says, please don't do that, not tonight. Think about it and make your decision when your mind is clear. Now, obviously, you think, oh, that's about the suicide. Right? Well, hang on. Please don't do that, not tonight. Think about it and make your decision when your mind is clear. Was this about killing herself, or was this about maybe something else she could have done that could have been serious trouble for him? You know? Was this she was gonna, you know, call his wife up? I'm getting into like real conspiracy theory type shit here, but you know, this guy is shady as fuck. This dude is shady as fuck. And there's a lot of suspicious shit going on here. And I had just taken it on its face value that this was a suicide, and now there is stuff. All I'm saying is that there's enough evidence to suggest something fishy was going on, that her parents were confident enough in filing a wrongful death lawsuit against Activision where they implied that it was foul play. So there's a lawyer who says you have enough to maybe escalate this. Maybe. I don't know if that's exactly how it works, but maybe you could paint it. Maybe we might have a case for something intentional, premeditated even, right? And this activity is so suspicious, almost like, you know, 8:30. You know, he's going back and forth, and then at 8:30 a.m. he contacts her, so he gets the logs on her phone, or he gets the logs on his phone. At 9 a.m., he, you know, 30 minutes later, he calls hotel security, and then, it's just, and then they never say anything. So here's the thing. So this is so especially okay. Here's the some of the more solid stuff we've got. His denial. So first of all, going and cleaning items from her room, if that's true. Lie to police about his reason for having a key to her apartment, and then coming clean later. So okay, here's the thing. There's a couple things that like this article doesn't exactly point out. Number one, lying. Okay. If you go in for a second round of questioning, you are a suspect. You are a suspect, okay? A lot of times, like, you know, they'll question people just to get info. You know, anyone who knows anyone who is connected at all, they'll question people. If you go in for a second round of questioning, there was suspicious shit in your first one, and they're calling you back. And then to say that he lied. So here's the thing. I was watching a bunch of videos from lawyers, so I started becoming familiar with this recently. The cover-up is worse than the crime, and that's actually like a legal. That's not just a moral thing; it's also a legal thing. For instance, if you commit a crime, or if you're even around a crime and you flee from the scene, that is incredibly suspicious, because it implies there's ways that you can actually get around sentencings if you if you, for instance, stay at the scene or something. If you flee, that's basically an admission of guilt. Why would you need to flee the scene? Or why would you need to hide evidence? Why would you need to do any of this if you weren't involved? Or if there was nothing, you know, fishy going on? So number one, the fact that he cleaned stuff out of her apartment. The fact that they wiped her laptop when they knew that she was the part, you know, there was an investigation going on. They wiped her company approved phone. Extremely suspicious to law enforcement. Why the fuck would you do that? Second of all, that he was called in for a second round of questioning and then admitted that he lied about why he was in her apartment or why he had access to her apartment. Really, really fucking suspicious. I thought that this was an open and shut just tragedy, you know. But this might end up being much more interesting. There might be a lot more to this than initially met the eye. I do not trust this fucking Restituto guy. He has a history of lying to investigators when, like, why would you want to do that in this case? Obviously, I don't know, he might have been trying to cover up for, like, you know, a potential manslaughter case if it was a suicide. But it's a little late for that, dog. You shared her nudes at a company holiday party. Maybe you should have thought about that like a few steps earlier. You know, maybe you were feeling a little too frisky with how horrible you were. I'm gonna have a ginger snap. So yeah, some wild information coming out of that filing. And Activision are definitely getting fucked over this. She filed multiple. Okay. I see the lawsuit against Activision as, like, I don't know how they can beat this. Is this now the 5th lawsuit? God damn. I don't see how they can beat this because the evidence is so stacked against them that even, you know, a Bobby Kotick army of lawyers might not even be able to, like, finagle their way out of this. Blatantly broke company policy when the company was aware of it, and it resulted in someone's death. Ooh. Now, of any, like, foul play accusations, that might be... It's a little more up in the air. It is a little bit more of a he said, she said thing with, like, well, we got to do some investigate. This is the breaking company policy, the thing against Activision is pretty cut and dry. I think that's open and shut, personally. If we've got any legal experts in the comments, let me know. But the any ideas of this being a murder or anything more than a suicide might be a little dicier, which is why I won't say anyone's guilty of anything, but I will say that this guy is a piece of shit and he's a shady fucking guy. Do not trust him. Do not trust this man. Okay. Want to do a quick... Okay. Breaking up the darkness a little bit. Bandcamp is joining Epic Games. Okay. Fucking alright. Weird. So, Epic Games has acquired... Yeah, so, Epic Games has acquired Bandcamp, the music streaming service, which I guess is one of the more I guess, creator-friendly ones. Bandcamp has a post on their website. So here's what they say. Bandcamp will keep operating as a standalone marketplace and music community, and I will continue to lead our team. This is coming from Ethan Diamond. His name is Ethan Diamond? Wow. Who's the co-founder CEO of the company. The product and services you depend on aren't going anywhere. We'll continue to build Bandcamp around our artist-first revenue model, where artists at an average of 82% of every sale. You'll still have the same control over how you offer your music, Bandcamp Fridays, so blah, blah, blah. So everything is pretty much staying the same. However, behind the scenes, we're working with Epic to expand internationally and push development forward across Bandcamp, from basics like our album pages, mobile apps, merch tools, payment system, and search and discovery features, to newer initiatives like our vinyl pressing and live streaming services. Since our founding in 2008, blah, 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 blah. So essentially what this looks like, this was a very weird acquisition. It's a very weird acquisition for like a game publisher, developer, platform holder, Travis Scott concert organizer to acquire Bandcamp. I guess this fits in their like creator first model. So that makes sense. At least the things with, if you use pardon me, maybe there'll be some, hopefully all that happens is that nothing gets negatively affected and Bandcamp just gets better and bigger. This might end up having some integration in Fortnite. I could actually see that being quite I could see that happening. Could you imagine like a Fortnite in-game music player? Like you could have music playing in-game, or something like that, like streamed from Bandcamp. That would actually be kind of dope. You don't have to play anything in the background. If you're on, if you're playing on PC or something, it might be a little more convenient. Lets them build a little ecosystem. That would be kind of neat. They do have a history of doing like live music performances in Fortnite. That might be like, this might have to do with that. If, artists like Fortnite, or an artists like working with Epic and Bandcamp, then they can do more stuff with that. I just thought this was weird, to be honest. I was like, what? This is kind of random, but alright. Okay. Moving on to kind of the last thing, probably for the episode. I have been playing the hottest game, the one that's on everyone's mind right now, the one that everyone's talking about, tweeting about, making videos about, making guides. I've been playing. That's right, guys. I've been playing a Medieval. I'm not playing Elden Ring, guys. You guys know I don't play open world games. Come on, guys. I'm playing a Medieval. A Medieval's fucking really good. Let me run this down. So, a Medieval is a game from 2019, just 3 years ago. It's a boomer shooter. It's probably, okay, so of the boomer shooters, in this like current revival, the charge has been led by New Blood. New Blood, they're a publisher / developer, and their big push is, first of all, they published Dusk, Ultra Kill, and a Medieval. That's kind of like the triumvirate of New Age, the boomer shooter revival, along with like Ion Fury, which I also got. So basically there was a humble bundle for like a charity thing. I was like, sure, you get like 10 games. I'll even link it, actually, if it's let me find Dave Oshry's. If you go to Dave Oshry's Yeah, the Boomer Shoot, his handle right now is boomershooterbundle.com. Boomer Shooter Bundle, yep. And it's available until... Please tell me it's still available. 18 days! Oh, it's available for quite a while. So that's... 10... till like the 28th around, I want to say. So basically, for most of the month, the Boomer Shooter Bundle. So just in case you're curious, you can get... you can pay a minimum of $12 and you can get Dusk, baller ass game. Love that game. A Medieval, which I'm playing right now and is fantastic, and I will talk more about it. Ion Fury, which is basically like it's basically like a spiritual successor to the build engine games like Duke Nukem, Shadow Warrior, Blood, and those. I believe it's made in the build engine, which is freaking crazy. It's basically a limit-removing port of the build engine, so it's incredible. It's nowhere. It's like incredibly. You couldn't even. You would think that this was a new, like, modern engine that this was built on, but really, just the hardware is more powerful. Dread Templar, which looks really cool. Hrat, which is a very dingy, like Soviet. Grim, just boomer shooter. It's got that kind of like gray, brown, murky aesthetic. Nice looking, not boring looking, nice looking. Haven't gotten the chance to try it out yet, but it looks cool. There's a horse. One of the enemies is a horse with a gas mask. There's a coupon for Ultra Kill and Proteus. 25% off Ultra Kill and 10% off Proteus. Only on the Humble Bundle store, so you can pick those up for around like $10 or so each. Hedon Bloodright, which is a hentai shooter. Hedon, Bloodright I think is the sequel to the original Hedon. I'm forgetting. Basically, it's about a hot demon girl, and she's killing a bunch of fucking demons with tits. And it's surprisingly really good. It's basically a throwback shooter with really sick weapons and gameplay and stuff. And apparently some really, like, it's a long game. It's like lore and shit. It just so happens to be about, like, hot demon girls. So that's cool. Project Warlock, which is a game I've also played. That's a really fun game. It's like a... how would I describe it? It's like a 2.5D. It's that Doom style, like it's 3D, but it's using 2D sprites, and you go through levels, killing shit, and you work up to a boss, and there's like 5 different episodes, and then if you die, if you game over, you lose all your lives. You gotta start over again. If you have a slower I tried to play it on a laptop like last year or something on stream. Fucking did not work. So heads up. It is actually fairly graphically intensive. Mostly the lighting effects. If you can run it, it's really fun. If you can't, it's infuriating because the frame rate is so low and it's decently difficult, even on normal, so you will die. And then Hellbound, which is a... I actually hadn't really heard of this one. But it also looks pretty dope. It's more of like an Unreal style, game from the looks of it. I'm literally just going off of screenshots. I don't know if the design or anything backs that up, but basically, yeah, I don't know, it looks cool. And you can get all these games for minimum $12. And the charity that it goes to is Lotus Outreach International, which is a women's and children's shelter, and Able Gamers, which is they make specialized controllers for people with disabilities to be able to play video games. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I've wanted to play a lot of these games for a while. So I finally have been able to pick up a Medieval. It's been on my wish list for forever. Just never felt comfortable dropping like, I don't know how much it is. It's like 30 bucks, 20 bucks or something. It's not 30 bucks. It's like 20. Game's good. Game's good. The first thing that will really strike you about it is the art style. It continues with that, similar to Dusk, in that it's very, sometimes, in a sense, it's low poly. The enemies are low poly. The environments are very, are as well, where it's like, everything basically looks like cardboard with a texture thrown over it. But the textures are very high quality. It's like HD textures on flat geometry. And it's very like stylish in that sense. And also the lighting effects are freaking gorgeous. The lighting looks amazing. The weapons are all sprites, but they look like 3D images. They're all 2D sprites, just at like insanely high resolution. And the crazy thing about the reason they look 3D is that they actually have dynamic lighting effects on them. Like, a lot of them are, you know, made of metal or something like that, and you'll see reflections of the environment around you. I think they have some kind of crazy, like engine or dynamic lighting thing specifically for getting that effect. It looks fucking crazy when you see that when you realize that these things are sprites. So it also has an RTX mode, of course. And the game is pretty good. It's good. It's very good. Obviously, the graphics were the first thing that jumped out to me. The default FOV is like 80. That was whack. I pumped that up to like 100, and now it's been good. It's kind of like an old. It reminds me a lot of Quake in a few senses. First of all, there's a difficulty. The difficulty selection is a map, and you go through portals. I always love that. You go through portals to select your difficulty. That's fun. I always like when games do that. I like how System Shock 2's character creation was like literally like a sequence of like time skips, and between every time skip it's you walking into like, you basically sign up for a different like program or branch of the military or something like that, and that's like how you build your skills. So your character is literally like, you're going through your character's whole like military and like or like their whole career experience until you get to the events of the actual game. I always thought that was cool. Anyway, so basically it's, I don't know, it's a boomer shooter. You go through a bunch of levels. It has a very, you go through levels killing stuff, picking up weapons, fighting bosses. There's, you know, you got health pickups, you got ammo pickups. There's a little, I'm trying to think of like where to start with this game. I'll start off with the weapons. The weapons are dope. All the weapons are made to be really powerful feeling, in the sense that they just, I don't know, they're just strong. Like the first weapon you get that's actually like not just the default axe is like a staff that shoots little like water orbs that home in on targets. That's the first one you get. It's basically a game where you get really strong weapons because the enemies you're fighting are very strong. Every single episode has new enemies. There's like no repeats, and even like the basic ones can be like incredibly fast and high damaging and stressful to deal with. There is also a so in that same sense, in that same vein, when you have one of these shooters, generally there's like two styles of difficulty that the developers will design around. One is that you get a lot of ammo and there's a lot of enemies, and the enemies are hard. Two is that you don't get a lot of ammo and you have to really think about conservation, and the enemies are usually not as much, but there tends to be like maybe there's like, if you just shoot everything and you take every enemy out, then you might end up, running out without being able to kill everything. There's like not enough ammo sometimes to kill everything, and you have to like melee stuff to death, which is never fun. Those are generally like the two kinds of difficulty that they design around, and there's a spectrum. There's lots of stuff in between. A medieval is very far on the former side. It gives you a lot of ammo for all of your weapons, and it throws crazy enemies at you. Not like tons in terms of like a big horde, but the enemies they're also a little more Quake-like in that they tend to take at least a couple, like even the start, like the basic beginning enemies for each episode will take at least like 2, maybe 3 hits from your shotgun equivalent. It's not a shotgun. It's like a sword that shoots like blades. Shoots like blades of energy. Which is probably a good time to get onto the game's actual like aesthetics and style. It's a very I don't know how to describe what this game's like art style. It's like kind of it's very kind of like abstract and surreal, where the low poly environments help a lot with that, where a lot of the environments tend to be like big complexes of stone and steel, and there's like water, and nothing really makes sense. You don't exactly know, like, it's actually, speaking of System Shock, it's kind of the direct opposite, where in System Shock, every single room in the space station has a clear purpose that, like, if you just think about it for a second, you can actually see how the entire space station basically ran. This is way more on, like, the Doom Quake end, where it's, like, kind of just, it's just architecture. It's just weird architecture, and you don't understand why. It takes... So I think back in, like, Doom... So the thing with, like, Doom's level design was that, like... I think... Basically, obviously, you gotta go back to that, like, John Carmack quote about how story in a game is like story in a porn. It's expected to be there, but it's not important. And so that basically led to... Yeah, you're like fighting demons on a tech base on like Mars or something, and then you go to hell, but like it's not like the most important thing, Like it's just kind of the aesthetic. It's cool to kill demons. The main deal is the demon killing and the sick level design. So like the levels in Doom is like, yeah, you're in a tech base, but like there's like a river of slime. Why? In the middle of the thing. Just in like an open... Oh, there's like a walkway with no balcony, and it's like over this river of like toxic waste. You're like, none of it makes sense. It's just there, right? And that's fine. But it was... They kind of like... This became known as abstract level design. Or something like that. And it basically just means it's a pure... The aesthetics are the most surface level thing, and the actual design of the level it's the most pure focus. And a medieval kind of takes that and it stretches it into being the entire like aesthetic of the game, like the entire deal with the game. Basically, you are some kind of... It's very like interdimensional, almost Lovecraftian. Part of the Quake influence, potentially, where it's like the enemies are these weird... Are they like statues? Are they robots? Are they like biological? Are they from another dimension? They're like void monsters sometimes. Like, what is going on? You don't quite understand, but they're like... you see them and you're like, okay, you're like a something. I don't know what you are. And then all the levels that you're going through are like, is this like a temple? Is this a city? Do things live here? Do these have a culture? What are these? Why is it like this? It's intentionally confusing because the idea is that you are traveling through these like dimensions to these like other dimensions with things that you don't know what they are. In their own context, they make some kind of sense, but not sense to you. Which actually, like, in a funny way, kind of like enhances the art style. I think Quake also gets that a little bit, where it's like Quake was based on like, you know, love, initially at least based on like Lovecraftian kind of themes, and so going through these like weird complexes of stone and metal that don't really make any sense. It worked because it's not supposed to it's supposed to be beyond your comprehension. That's what a medieval's also going for. This is something that's beyond your comprehension. But you are the champion. You're the interdimensional champion, and you are going through these different realms to defeat evil. That's why it's called a medieval. Their evil has come, and to the multiverse, to all reality, and you are now traveling between them to extinguish it. And you're going to do that with a bunch of sick-ass weapons. So, there's like a hub world with, I think there's 7 episodes or something like that. And every single one has a different theme. So, like, the first one was, what was the first one? I'm trying to remember. Some of them, sometimes it does get so, it was like the lunar place, I think. Like very blue, and then the second one was like the sun. No, wait, I'm trying to remember. Anyway, I just, if I look it up, a medieval episodes, astral equinox, yeah. So then Domain of the Sentinels is the second one, and that's like trying to find pictures. Trying to find pictures so that I can like describe what these look like. Anyway, right now I just finished episode 5, the Forges, so I can talk about that one. So the Forges is basically, it's like machinery, and everything's basically made of like machine and rock, and it's like weird technology that you can't really understand. Some of the enemies are like robotic, like they're just metal people that are and kind of weird. They're like humanoid, but like they're weird looking, just metal creatures, and they shoot lasers at you. And there's like, what are some of the other enemies? There's like spiked balls that roll towards you that explode. There's like these guys with big hooks that they shoot at you on chains, and then they yank you in if they hit. Those guys are cool. It's extremely like green and black. It reminds me, the best comparison that I can make is it reminds me of like the last part of Final Fantasy VII, like Midgar, where it has like or sorry, not Midgar. Was Midgar? No, wait, fuck. It's the green with the, it's like green with like the metal, the whole floor is made of like the metal little like cubes, if you know what I'm talking about. The planet core or whatever. It's green, it's all, the whole floor is made of like cubes with this green glow everywhere. That's kind of what it reminds me of. There's like toxic waste that's like glowing on fire. Lasers are a thing here, as opposed to like, let's see, what was the previous one? The one right before that is the solar solstice. So that's like Medieval episode 4. It's so hard to like describe these because they are so weird. That's more of like sun temples and stuff like that. It's like kind of like sandstone type thing. And then at the end of these, there's always like a boss. Episode 3. Episode 3 is the Sentinels or something? I don't remember. Yeah, there's a boss at the end of every level. And they've been pretty easy so far. So I should talk about why they're easy. So there's a system in a medieval called like soul charge or soul power or whatever. And essentially, as you there's pickups around the world, but whenever you until they have to like fill it up, but whenever you kill an enemy, they drop souls and fills up your soul meter. And then once it's full, you can right click and you basically go into a powered up mode where all of your weapons get supercharged and they have new effects and they're just way better. So in the original build of the game, as soon as you hit 100 soul power, it just popped immediately. I'm playing right now where you can right click and it'll do that, and it's been really easy. Honestly, okay, only the bosses have been easy. I'm gonna eat another ginger snap. Only the bosses have been easy because I've been saving it for them, and then I just unload my strongest weapons on them. I haven't been like felt the need to use it. I haven't found it. I've been playing it on hard, but I haven't found it especially difficult until this last episode. So I wasn't even like saving. The game also has like an autosave system, so I wasn't even saving until episode 5, and I was doing pretty okay. I don't think I died a single time in episode 1. Like it might be worth going and playing it on like evil difficulty, which is the max difficulty. For the most part, it's been a good challenge, though. It does put you in situations that are, like... More so now, it's been putting me in situations that are like, ooh, that's kind of unfair. Which is that good stuff. Every now and again, a boomer shooter has to throw some shit at you that's just straight up not fair. That just straight up does not follow Title IX. You know? Flicked my pop filter again. The weapons feel great to use. So, let's see. I think I've gotten all the weapons so far. So the base axe actually feels alright as a melee weapon. The water staff is cool. It's useful for in like the homing aspect. The third weapon is like it's like a green sword, and you swing it and it throws these energy blades out, these horizontal energy blades, and when you charge it up, when you in soul power, they bounce around the room, which is way more interesting than the water staff's charged form, like big powered up form, which is it just shoots a lot of water orbs instead of like 2 at a time. The kind of like rapid fire weapon is a trident. It's called the Voltride, and it shoots lightning from the tips of the trident. And when you so it has this overkill system, which is basically, I think it's like when you do more damage to an enemy, or like a certain percentage of damage over their like maximum health, I'm not sure, you'll get an overkill. And I think that's like, I think it might jib too, I'm not sure. So when you overkill someone with the Voltride, lightning bounces to nearby enemies, so that's pretty dope. because it turns like an otherwise single target weapon into a multi-target AoE thing. That's really fun. The rocket launcher equivalent is awesome in this game. It's a claw that shoots planets. It just shoots planets. Like, there's a little planet inside of the claw. The Celestial Claw is literally, it's what it's called. It shoots shrinked planets. And sometimes it can be, sometimes one of those planets is the Earth. And when you shoot the planets and it hits an enemy, and it hits something and it explodes. If you get the Earth and you do that, you get a little message that says, you just blew up the Earth? I think there's an achievement for that. It's pretty fun. When you power it up, it shoots stars. It shoots, like, suns. Which is dope. Oh, I didn't even know that the boss of the solar... I'm looking on the wiki. The boss of the solar episode doesn't take any damage from the suns. Wow. The sixth weapon is the Star of Torment, which is my very favorite, and it's basically like it's like a mace, but the head of the mace is like the crystals. It's like a bunch of crystals sticking out, a bunch of jagged, spiky crystals, and you throw these crystal shards and they stick into enemies, and there's some enemies with shields, and it goes right through the shields. Sick. It does a ton of damage, and when you power it up, it shoots out these like full like bundles of shards, and if it hits anything, they just explode and go all over the place. You can just like shred. The powered up Star of Torment shreds shit. Pardon me. You just blow through things with this. I have bursted down bosses like no one's business with that thing. And then the final weapon, the like super weapon of the game. Let me see if what's it called? It's called Eternum. I don't even know how to describe it. It looks like a bunch of purple spaghetti. And it basically shoots... It's basically a BFG, or it's the BFG 10,000, where you shoot a little orb, and then after a certain point it just... And then it shoots little like lightning strikes at every single enemy in like a huge area. And it just kind of incinerates them. And when you power it up, it shoots out a black hole, and the effect of like the black hole when it sucks enemies in is so cool. It's like literally like the spaghettification. They just into it and it just kills everything instantly. It's pretty badass. The weapons feel really good to use. They have a really nice animations of just swinging them or throwing them or using them. The sound effects are like really nice and crunchy. The actual effects of enemies getting hit are nice. Even like the water spheres feel kind of, because there's this big as like the water orbs pop. I've been really enjoying it. It's just a classic, really kind of like throwback, really sick boomer shooter. I love boomer shooters. I'm gonna go play through a bunch of other ones after I'm done with this game. So I am at episode 5. I just finished it. I wanted to at least beat as much of it as I could before I talked about it. So I would, yeah. If you're wondering if I would recommend it, I would. It's a great game. Visually, it's just gorgeous, has a really cool art style. I'm really glad that we've moved into kind of accepting low poly as like an art style now. Like there's people who will just poo-poo anything that's not like super high res. Like there's people who look at pixel art and they think that it's bad graphics. What the? It's just a style. It's just a style, dude. What? And low poly is, I think, as legitimate of a style. Because the thing is that, like, we're seeing games now that they're low poly by choice. It's kind of like when you see a movie in black and white by choice. It's like, well, black and white has a very specific effect. It has like a visual effect. Like the way that light and shadows look in black and white is very different from in color, even with like correction and stuff like that. It's just the way that that stuff gets picked up. And so you can be making a movie or something and you're like, I think this shit would just look visually, what I want to be doing just looks better in black and white. That's why noir movies are such classic, like black and white styles of movies, genres of film, because they're dark and they have like, it's like a lot of just the looks of those films is like darkness with like one or two lights in the scene, a street light or a lamp or something like that, and it just looks so much more like you feel totally wrapped in by the presentation. And I think low poly is just as legitimate. What low poly does is it makes things, it's about what's implied rather than what's detailed, if that makes sense. Like when you see low poly graphics, it textures look interesting on a low poly graphics because they get a little scrunched, they get a little crunched, and you end up having to sort of see, how would I describe this? You kind of, details come out that are just kind of implied because of the kind of fuzziness and the fact that it's not as detailed means that your mind and your eyes are kind of making up details when you see certain things. It's also like having very like angular shapes can make it more visually clear when certain things are happening, when something is moving. I don't know, there's just, I feel like there's more that you could say about low poly graphics, but I think it looks, if you do it right, which, you know, Dusk is another game that does it right. Ultra Kill, from what I've seen, I know everyone's gonna be mad at me because I haven't played Ultra Kill, also does it right, where it just, I don't know, man, it looks pretty. If you can get past the fact that you can't see, like, you know, the horse's balls shrinking, it's the directness. That's also part of it's the directness of the shapes, the crunchiness that makes it like exaggerated, whereas like if it was more realistic it might like, or high fidelity, I don't know, it might just blur together, if that makes sense. Kind of yeah, blur together. So yeah, check out a Medieval. Check out the Boomer Shooter bundle, which I'll be linking below. And I don't really have anything else. We've been going for about an hour and 45. So I want to let everyone know that thank you for watching if you've been watching this far. If you have any questions, leave them down below, and I will definitely get to them next time. But please leave it in the form of a question, because I am not just going to read your thoughts out loud. Check out Romero's charity level. Check out a Medieval. Don't accuse anyone of crimes. And I don't know. New video. Two videos a month. 2 videos a month is what I'll say. Alright, love you guys. Bye.